Okay. Hi, everybody. And I have an echo. Happy Monday, everyone. Hopefully, you guys can hear me okay. Sorry for the delay. I was trying to show myself on my phone while also using my computer. I don't know if this is working out that way. So let me know what you guys can see. And thank you, Pandy and Edward. I see you. Thank you so much for being here. So I'm using my phone. So I don't know how this is going to work, but I like the image on my phone better for the playbacks. So let me know if you can see me okay. If you can't see me, all right, then I will just need to adjust and go ahead and use my computer instead. So just let me know. Either way, let's see here. And let me move to comments so I can see. Hey, Shonda. Shonda, are you able to see me all right on here? Okay. Okay, Edward. Thank you. Perfect. Hi, Boss Lady Denise. Okay, cool. So I don't know if I'm sharing this other screen. You should be seeing my face, and then you should also be seeing a bigger view of this article. And let me see something. Let me scroll up a little bit. Let me see if I can get the title. I can't get the title. Oh, there we go. Okay, so this is what sparked the topic of conversation today. So I saw this article that was basically talking about different words and phrases that we as women use on a day to day that basically cause us to undermine either what we're saying or our point, what we're trying to get across, or what we're trying to accomplish. So I thought, I'd have a conversation with folks about this. And it's something I actually have seen personally for myself, but then also as I do work as a corporate recruiter, I have many conversations with men and women. I focus on tech recruitment. So, as you can imagine, I hear a lot of men, and I can tell how their conversation style is in comparison to when I'm talking to either women on my immediate team, other folks that work in HR or human resources, and also candidates that I talk to that are women. So it's it's tough to make all the comparisons sometimes in yourself, but I have definitely seen it in other women, which has caused me to see what I actually say myself. So some of the things I've been able to change, some things I'm still working on. But let's jump into the article that I want to talk about. So there's a couple of big phrases in here, and let me scroll through. Okay, couple big phrases in here that I recognize many women say, and I think one or two of them I have mentioned in some of my videos when I'm telling people, like, don't say this, or you need to say this, or say it in a different way. And one of the things that stood out to me is inserting the word just. And I'm like, yeah, I do this. So the example here is inserting just. I just want to check in and see. I just think. And the issue with just tends to make us sound a little apologetic and defensive about what we're saying. And then they're saying, think about the difference between the sound of I just want to check in and see, and I want to check in and see. So it's like more assertive in a way. The other thing that the article doesn't point out is what I see on the recruiter front. So it's when someone says how they worked on this big project, they said, oh, I just did, X, Y, and Z, or I just led this action, or I just presented to the CEO. And when you add that word just in there, it takes away from what you actually did, and it takes away from that confidence of what you're saying. So just saying that, taking out that just and saying, I did this, I led this presentation, I talked with the CEO, it changes that completely up. And the takeaway is more positive, and it, I guess, invokes more confidence in the person. So that's the first thing. I definitely think that as women, we have to get that out of our vocabulary as much as we can. And I do feel like men don't do this enough, like, or as much as women. I don't feel like men really do this, but let me know what you guys think. Edward, I know, is in the chat. I think, oh, Ogden, hello, welcome in. It will be good to hear men's perspective on that, but I feel like it's something that we have just subconsciously added. I don't think anyone ever told me like, hey, you need to say, I just think this, or I just do this. It's more just kind of naturally subconscious. So the next word in here is inserting actually. So saying, I actually disagree. I actually have a question. It actually makes us sound surprised that we disagree or have a question. And I actually did not realize this. I didn't think about this as much. I do believe I say this a lot. And I guess I could just simply replay some of my videos out here to see how much I say this. But adding the word, oh, I actually think this, if you're disagreeing with someone, I've definitely been there. And I do feel like it takes away, again, like it's that confidence. It takes away from your message. Like, oh, I actually, instead of saying, I think this, or I want this. So it makes it a little softer, which, you know, maybe it is a good thing when you're having certain conversations, like maybe you're talking to someone that's upset. Using some of this language can calm down or diffuse the situation. But in business and everyday, you know, just everyday life, or when you're trying to negotiate with someone, it can take away from that. So let me see here, see if anyone disagrees or agrees with me. Seeing a lot of good mornings. Good morning, good morning. Boss lady, everyone's saying they could see me. And yes, there's a delay. So some of these comments I am seeing late. You all know this. So I guess everyone agrees with that message. So I'm going to move on to the next one here. It's this idea or this thing that we do, and it's using qualifiers. So saying, I'm no expert in this, but, or I know you've been researching all this time for a long time, but. So basically not just coming out and stating your opinion, but you're, again, trying to soften it up. You're trying to come across in a way that you're not hurting someone else's feelings. So it's kind of that apologetic, like, you're wrong. Like, I understand you, but you're wrong. And this is why. So saying, I'm no expert in this, but these are the facts, or I'm no expert in this. I don't think I've ever said that. I don't think I typically go into conversation saying, I'm not the expert, but I think if I'm not the expert, I'm probably not giving my opinion. But, you know, it is something that some women say. I'm going to drink some water. I normally don't drink out of water bottles, but it's in front of my face. And you guys know I've been struggling with the drier air in Dallas, so one day maybe I'll get used to it. So that will be the next one. I definitely agree. I don't think I do this as much, but again, it's something that you don't really think about, and I may not even realize that I do this as a woman, but it's something that, to the article's point, we should get away from. So this one, I don't know if I 100% agree with the point. And so it's asking, does this make sense, or am I making sense? So they're saying, I used to do this all the time. We do it with good intention. We want to check in with the other people in the conversation and make sure we've been clear. The problem is, does that make sense? Comes across as either condescending, like your audience can't understand, or it implies you feel you've been incoherent. So a better way to close something is, I look forward to hearing your thoughts. So I think that's fine for an email, but if you're talking to someone face to face, you're not going to be like, yeah, so da 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 da. I look forward to hearing your thoughts. So maybe they're getting at, you know, what are your thoughts? Like, what do you think about that? You can leave it up to the other party to let you know if they're confused about something, rather than implying, did that make sense? You know what? I think so. I halfway agree with this point, actually. So, does that make sense? I have to think back just to when someone's asking me that question. So, there's, and I will say most women do this. They say, does that make sense? Or, am I making sense? It's pretty normal. I will say I don't typically feel like they're looking for anything from me. Like they're not really asking me, do I have questions? So maybe a better alternative for this, just in general, for anybody to get a better response or to actually hear some issues that someone might have, is to say, do you have any questions about that? Or what are your thoughts? I do agree that there's a better way to ask that question. I just don't know if I don't know if asking am I making sense typically gets that response of like actual questions, or if they have concerns or something. It's just being more straightforward with, do you have any concerns, or do you have questions for me, or what are your thoughts? I do feel like asking something more straightforward can help. So there are a few like questions that they had in here and little scenarios that I won't get to, but I wanted this to be a good conversation driver for us. Let me see if I can get rid of this screen because I don't want this to be so big anymore. Yeah, okay, cool. So I've really just wanted that to be more of a conversation starter for this question of, are women in general, are we kind of devaluing ourselves? And I've talked about this a couple of times, but are we devaluing, let's see if I can say that word, ourselves with the specific words that we're using? So is there anything that we can do with our language, our everyday conversation, and the phrases and words that we're using to come across as more valuable in the workplace, or to drive better conversations with people? I definitely agree. Again, with the article I was showing, I think adding just, I've always been someone that did not like when I would hear female candidates say, I just did such and such. Now, it's a different context than what that article was saying, but I do feel like that's a word that we should get out of our conversation, unless we're saying if a person is just or unfair, like if we're using it in that context, okay. But I do think that in all the conversations I've had, for women that use just, they are taking away from the value that they're bringing into the different projects and everything that they're doing, versus when men say things, if anything, they're kind of overstating what they did. They are saying, yeah, and I ran this and that. And sometimes they didn't even do that. I have been in scenarios where I know the person and I'm listening to this man talk about the things that he did, all the while knowing that he let some other person, and in this case, I'm thinking about another woman on the team, do all of this work, and he's kind of just sitting back, not really stepping up to do much of anything. So I've been there. So, and I've talked about this too, about men not seeing the value of women, or thinking that women don't do as much in the workplace. I've seen plenty of instances where the opposite is true, where the man is hanging back, the woman's doing the work, but then they come in and they say that they've done X, Y, and Z, and really hyped it up and made it sound like this fabulous thing. Unless you were a part of the project or you saw it go down, you would think that that man led it, when really the woman did. But she's using some of these words and languages that really takes away from everything that she did. And I do think a part of it is we're taught, as like from girls as a young age, to be more modest in what we're saying, not to brag. And so I think a lot of that happens too. Whereas boys, they're taught to brag, they're taught to be loud and to say everything that's on their mind, and really make no apologies for what they're saying. Now, I'm making generalities. We know that some parents teach their boys and girls differently, but that's been like status quo for a very long time. And let me see this comment from Edward Smart. So Edward is saying, I've mentioned this before. The female security offers that work for me do not have a problem expressing or promoting themselves. Yeah. Yeah, you have mentioned that before. And I do think that's the industry, right? Now, my question for you though, Edward, is when you think of how the women speak, and again, that's a very male dominated industry. I think those are a different type of women that are working in security or have most likely been in law enforcement in the past. But are there words that they're using? Do you ever hear them using the word, I just did whatever, whatever? Or are they ever more apologetic, excuse me, in their speech? Do they say, I actually think this when they're stating an opinion? So that's what I'm curious to hear. Like, is it because it's one thing to not be afraid to speak up. Like I don't think as many women are super cautious as far as speaking up as much. Some still are, but there are women that are like, hey, this and that. And I've been on teams where, the women are speaking up and that's fine, but they're speaking up in a certain way. Like there's still, I guess, a cadence to how they're communicating their points. They're not just saying, yeah, da 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 da. Like there's thought to it, or there's a particular way that they're talking. So they're going to tell you, this is what I think, but they're saying, well, I really think this, or like they're putting well before, like, well, I was thinking that we should do it this way instead of saying, what if we do it this way? Or they're saying, well, don't you think this could be cool? Or I think maybe actually, adding maybes or actuallys and all these different words to soften their message, especially when they're disagreeing with someone, whether it's a man or a woman. So I've definitely seen that happen. I've done this myself. I feel like I probably still do a lot of this stuff just because, again, it's more so ingrained into my brain. So it's this question of, should we get away from all these words? How do we do it? And what really does come across? And I don't know if people really pay attention to it as much. Let me see. Yeah, so Cubson is saying, so what if that is just how they speak? And I think that's it. I think we are subconsciously taught to speak a certain way. But here's the thing is you do see a difference in certain words and how men and women do speak. And so how does that come off into the workplace? So that's really the question. Like, do we really need to change how we speak? Maybe we don't. But I do feel like with making subtle changes, how you come off to others it can benefit you, right? So I go back to talking with candidates. So again, with speaking with men, they're typically not saying like, oh, I just did this or I just did that. They're not downplaying the work they do. So most likely you see cases where, and there's stats around this, right? So men get hired or men get those promotions. Well, there may not be any difference in work, but the men are getting paid more. Well, is one reason for that because women are downplaying what they're doing and their basic conversations that they're having with people. So that's my question for the group. I do think that women, just in how we speak, do a lot of that detrimental stuff too. So it's not just companies are not paying folks equally. That's definitely a big thing too. But what is it that we as women have been taught to do from young ages? That's now as we become adults and we're working and we're going out in the world, it's taking away from our value, I guess. So that's really my point and really what I took away from this article. So that was the question that was basically, what are the holes that you see women falling into most frequently when they speak? So there's plenty of other words that we use as women. These were just the main ones that they wanted to point out, that these are like the little things women do when they're speaking and when we're writing an email, for example. So they're saying, I just wanted to do this, or I just actually disagree, or they're qualifying a lot. So the other thing is apologizing. So for women, why are we constantly apologizing for what we say? Like if we don't agree with something, we're coming from a more apologetic angle. Do you think that men also do that? I'm curious. Because we like Beyonce's song "Sorry Not Sorry" is coming to mind. But most of the time, women are very apologetic about anything. Like if they're disagreeing with something, if they made a mistake, they're harping on it a lot more. So it's a lot of things that we do, and it comes off badly in the workplace sometimes. So one question that the article pointed out that I want to cover in this is that don't men use these speech habits too? So do men do the same thing? So the article is saying they do, but the research on this topic has found that lower status groups in any culture use these kind of speech habits more than high status groups, and that women use them more than men. So, and I need some specific stats on that, but that's what they found from their research. And then the second point they have here is, most importantly, the research showed them that when men use these speech habits, it does not impact how authoritative they come across. For women, these habits do have a negative consequence in terms of how they're perceived, so how we're perceived. One quote that stands out saying, it's an unconscious habit many women have to apologize before asking a question, to apologize because they're standing at the milk and sugar station at the cafe while someone else is waiting for their turn, to apologize in all kinds of situations where an apology is not warranted. We apologize simply for taking up space. So that's an interesting quote. I do see that women in general, and I've been here, so I'm not counting myself out, apologizing just for kind of existing or just feeling like you always need to apologize. So this is even just taking an instance when you're in the grocery aisle or something, you're standing in someone's way. Well, I mean, you're in your space, maybe they should say, pardon me, and then you can move out of their way or whatever. So it's like the little things. So very little things that we typically won't pay attention to. Let me see here. Cubson says, I think it's okay to remain true to who we are, even though it might come off as soft. Okay, good insight, Cubson. And Pandy says, I don't tend to see men in the workplace communicate in this fashion. Okay, so Pandy is saying that women don't typically use these different words like saying, I just did this, or kind of downplaying some things they did, or being apologetic. Okay. So let me see. I might pull this back on the big screen because they also put in here the question why. So why? Why do we use these speech habits as women? So some of it is simply habit, which we get. We talked about that, right? We hear other girls talking like this in our lives, and we absorb countless hours of women and girls talking like this in films and TV, and so we start doing the same, right? So we see our mom doing this, we see our sister, our friends are talking in this way. We see it on TV, of course, exactly. There's a deeper reason too. Most women are unconsciously using these speech habits to soften our communications. To Cubston's point, of just, we're kind of that feminine masculine, right? Femininity is typically softer, unless you're thinking about like the Amazonian type of feminine that is, feminine, but in a different way, right? So we soften our communications to try to ensure we don't get labeled. Make this a little bit bigger, maybe. So we ensure we don't get labeled as women so often as bitchy or aggressive or abrasive. We worry other people will perceive us that way. And we've got that internal monitor voice inside saying, don't come across as too itchy. I don't like saying that word. So I just said it in context, but I don't like saying it. But don't come across as too itchy. We put in the actualities, the just, the I'm not an expert, but to make sure that we seem humble. So, yeah, that humility that we're constantly taught. We're being nice, we're being likable. And so it can interfere as we try to get our ideas across. Yes, and I do think it depends on the audience as well. I think that is a big point too. Like, do we change our communication at all when we talk to women versus when we're talking to a group of all men? I have seen women do this as well, catering to their audience. I think in general, men might do this as well, catering to their audience a bit when they're talking to a woman versus a man. They're saying, I also believe that it's because for centuries, women did not have the political and human rights to protect our safety if we spoke up and threatened or angered those around us. Of course, we learned to soften our communication, but now we don't need to keep all of those old patterns with us. I disagree with that point. So only partially. I agree that, women have been taught to speak softly for our own protection. I don't think, to what this person is stating, we don't need to keep all of those old patterns with us. I think there's still a question of, can women safely speak out? And I see this all the time with a woman simply speaking out on social media and stating her opinion about something, right? I've seen how women are bashed on social media for saying something as simple as, hey, women should only date men that have a job, or can provide protection, or that actually have their life together. Stating something as simple as that, I've seen women bashed for it. And even just looking at countless videos of a woman just turning the man down and just saying, no, I'm not interested. We've been taught to say it in a softer no, or even lying and saying, oh, I have a boyfriend, sorry, I can't, like trying to appease to that ego, right? So I feel like even today, that could be a big reason why we're still talking in this manner where we have to soften our communication, because we don't fully have that full protection around us where we can state something and not be afraid of getting bashed or even hurt and injured for that reason. All right, let me see it here in the comments. Yep. Oh, hey, King of Kills. So we are looking at this article. So we've been talking about a few points, phrases and words that women say to soften their communication. But what is that, what kind of result do we get from that? Is there a hindrance to women for having this soft style of communication? So we're just having a discussion. Cubston is saying, but at times it backfires when women communicate in the way some men do. This is why I'm for being true to yourself. I would agree with that, Cubston, because yes, there are women, and to Edward's point earlier, like the women on his security team, he said those women have no issue with speaking up. So there are some women that, and of course, there's kind of a spectrum. So we all have feminine and masculine traits. There's this question of what is true femininity, what is true masculinity, but there's different aspects to us as people in general, right? So to your point, Cubston, can it backfire when you're trying to, I guess, step away from your normal communication style, right? And I would pose the question of, anytime we're moving into the workplace, right? A lot of us shift our communication style a bit, and again, to meet our audience. So when you're talking to your homegirls, and I'm saying homegirls, I don't know, but you're talking to your girlfriends or whatever, your communication might be a little different because you're comfortable with them. They are going to understand you a certain way. But then when you're presenting to maybe leadership, you're going to talk a certain way. If I'm talking to a technical person, I'm going to shift my communication a certain way. And then if I'm talking to someone, maybe they're maybe lower class, maybe they are, used to a certain, I don't know, a certain, what am I trying to say? Maybe some things would be a little above them. Like if I started talking technical jargon, if I started using really big words, not saying that I use big words, but things that would be over their head, or if I'm talking to a child, we definitely switch up our communication because we do have to match our audience sometimes. So I agree with you to a point. I don't think you should go completely like do a whole 180 and change like you sound like a man and you're a woman. I think that would totally go against the point. But are there different words that we need to avoid and different styles that we may need to use when we are talking or interacting with a certain group? Good point, Cubson. Hey, Primping, nice to see you here. I'm glad you were able to make it. Let me see here. Primping saying hi to everybody. That's why, okay. So King of Kill says, that's why I encourage women to arm themselves. Okay, so to my point that we're making in this article, so I'm going to make it, let me see here. So the whole safety. So we soften our communication so that we don't anger those around us or we're not threatened by those around us. Yes, I agree. I mean, and here's the thing, it really shouldn't be that way. We should feel protected enough to be able to say what we think. Obviously, there's a balance with that. You're not just going out attacking people with your words, right? But to just say simple things or taking a stance on something, we should definitely all, men and women, feel comfortable saying that. I also do feel like even men can't fully, I don't think people in general can fully just say things without that fear of being threatened in some kind of way. It may look different for men, but I think, that's the challenge we have today. Okay, so the other question here, how do we communicate powerfully but not come across as itchy? There's that word again. So they're saying, honestly, I would first ask women to consider, am I okay with sometimes being considered as itchy by some people? Being seen that way doesn't mean you are that way. In our culture, an outspoken, confident woman is probably not going to be liked by everyone all the time. I would say that just being a person in general, you're not going to be liked all the time. I don't know why we have in the culture this feeling that everyone is going to like us. There's going to be someone, like if you meet enough people, there's going to be someone that does not like you, whether they say it to your face or not. They're just not going to like you. And so I've taken that in. I mean, my mom taught me that as a little girl, like not everyone is going to like you. Does that stop us from trying to be likable? No, but I think we do have to get that through our head. Like, however we're talking, there's going to be someone that completely either disagrees with our points or, just doesn't like us or our presentation or how we're presenting. Even I've talked about this before, pretty privilege, just not liking someone just because you think they're not attractive or liking someone because you think they're attractive. There's so much that goes into that. So let's see. Most women are unconsciously using these speech habits to soften our communications to try to ensure we don't get labeled, as women often do, as itchy, aggressive, and abrasive. So at the same time, of course, we need to be mindful of how we are coming across to those we want to influence, reach, and work with. The key big idea is this: instead of using the self-diminishing qualifiers, so those were just, actually, sorry, but, I'm not sure, but, and I feel like I have said that one. I am not sure, but I do feel like I might have used that before. Maybe not as common, but I've used it. And so many more, right? So that you seem nice. Communicate both your warmth and confidence in a protective, positive way. That's very different than trading off how you confidently or how confidently you come across in order to be seen as more likable. Okay, so the question next was give us some example of this. So before I get into that, let me see here. Cubston says exactly, and I know this is delayed, so I'm so I'm seeing them. Okay, simply panty, so true. All right, good. Okay, so can you give us some examples? So what are the examples that is provided here? Positive ways to communicate with warmth include warm greetings in your communications. Now, this is something that I learned when I worked at the PR firm years ago. I worked at a global public relations firm. And so, primarily, the groups that I worked with were women. So, not just because HR is women dominated, but just in the overall organization, public relations is also an industry that, grabs a lot of women. It's marketing, it's broadcast communications. So one thing I learned is to soften my communication by saying, like in my emails, hi, hope you had a great weekend, and then getting into the point, or messaging someone like what I am and saying, hello, how are you? And then going into the message. When I first got out of college, I was just like, task, task, task. I need this from you. Give me this information. We need to get into it so I can move on to the next thing. Like I would have my list of the day, check, check, check. So something I learned was to soften my intro, my greeting to someone, especially with written communication. So if I'm emailing or messaging someone, to softly approach them, then jump into it. But does that take away from anything in my message? Maybe some people just want you to get straight to the point. Maybe they don't want you to, do the niceties or how was your weekend, da 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 da, and then get into it. It's some people are just like, what do you want? Right? So I've definitely come across people like that. So they're saying one way to soften your communication is, having that greeting. And I think for women and men can take something away from that. Simple positive statements that warm up the tone of the communication. So looking forward to meeting with you next week and hearing your feedback. Yes, I think that, so this is something else that I'm thinking of now that I'm seeing this as well. I feel like with how I've seen communications, and I'm thinking about written communications, typically men are a lot straighter to the point. So I don't think I would see, and I'm trying to think of when I have seen any communication like this come from a man. So looking forward to meeting with you next week and hearing your feedback. I think a man saying the same thing would just say, we'll talk next week. Let me know what you think, or something, or let me know what you think next week, right? They would say something very short and to the point. Light use of humor. I think humor is very, I think it depends on your audience as far as the use of humor sometimes. I feel like humor, you just have to be careful with. Everyone's not funny. Humor is different with different groups of people. So, like in America, humor is different than, say, in Canada or, say, the UK. Humor is different. So, I think people really have to be careful with that. I sometimes use humor, and I have had experiences where I try to be funny and I'm not funny. Some people have said I'm funny, but I'm just not. I'm not a comedian. I don't try to be. I may say something that ends up being funny to other people, but most of the time it's not intended to. I'm just saying what's on my mind, and someone laughs at it. But as far as humor, I've definitely tried to use that, and it's completely gone wrong. And no one, sorry, no one thinks it's funny. No one thinks it's funny. So I would just be careful with that. Again, I'm taking a sip of water because, whew, okay. A bit of non-work conversation at opening or closing of work conversations or communications. Yeah. Again, this is something I had to learn very early in my career because I was that person that I really didn't want to, I didn't want to have the soft communications. I would go into work. I'm like, okay, I have 8 hours. I have 8 hours to get this done. And so you're taken away from my time. Us talking about you and your daughter and her bridal shower is taken away from my time. I don't want to be here all day. And I think a part of that was due to type of work I was in, it was something that I was not super, I guess I wasn't loving it. It was not the best work environment for me. And so I did not want to hang out at work. I wanted to get in, get it done. So I think that whole idea of just having that soft communication can sometimes go wrong. We talked about this before in another live that men think women are chatty. And so that's where the whole thinking of, well, do women work or men spend more time working? Because maybe they're seeing that women are having more of that dialogue openly in the workplace. Whereas men, a lot of times with their communication, it's off work. It's like offline. It's them going to like a happy hour after work or taking a longer lunch, and they're not seen in the workplace, hee-hawing and chit-chatting and all of that stuff in the workplace. They're doing it offline. They're doing it when they have their cards night or poker night or their golf day or whatever. So I think I get the points here, but at the same time, I think the whole warm communication is taking away from their earlier point. Let me find it. Of using these different habits we put in our speech to warm up our communication. So it's kind of, I feel like they're contradicting themselves a bit, because can you have this soft, warmer communication while not really taking away from your message? I think you can. I think it depends on the audience. So let me see here. Let's see if there's anything else I wanted to point out. I don't really want to talk about that. Okay, I think I covered everything here. But yeah, that was really the point I wanted to make. And I see someone just came in. I think it's Angel's Army. Nice to see you. Oh, let me share this one more time. Okay, so this article was put out by Goop, and let me look up Goop because I just kind of stumbled across it. See who the author is. Really see anything. It's like share and follow, and there's some of this advertisement that's taken away from stuff too. But anyway, this is under their career and money section, and it's how women undermine themselves with words. So if you're interested in that, I will share the link to the article afterwards. But overall, I just feel like our consensus is that yes, women are using different words to soften our language. I think what we have to be careful with is overuse of it, or when we're trying to make a point, that may be the time where we are not softening our language. We're just stating our point, right? But then in those times where we feel like there's going to be a lot of pushback in order to maintain our safety and make sure we're protected, those may be the times where we need to have a softer approach, or when we're thinking that we're going to come off a little itchy to others. In those instances, maybe we soften our approach, but still, to Cubson's point earlier, staying true to our overall communication style. So that is the video. Let me see if there are any comments in here, any points that were made. But I just wanted to quickly address that because it was on my mind. Oh, hey, Angel. Nice to see you. Good morning. How are you? And I know it is a little early there for you. Well, what time is it there in Arizona? 8 o'clock? 9 o'clock? Hello, JR. Welcome. Happy Martin Luther King Day. Nice to see you here. Let's see. Edward is saying, I do find that incident report written by females tend to be more lengthy. Okay. Thank you for sharing that, Edward. I see that as well. Whenever I am engaging with, I think you tend to see less of it as you communicate with leadership, right? So with leadership, I think it's just more of a time commitment. They're just quicker. So with women in high leadership, I've seen them have shorter communications. But day to day, like mid-level management, your individual contributors, the language definitely with men is a little more consistent. Like they're to the point. Even to the point, if they need to provide a lot of detail, they're putting it in an Excel, like, I don't know, table or something to make it straightforward versus using a lot of words. And I do know that naturally, with girls and boys, typically girls are quicker with English and writing and all of those things, whereas boys tend to be quicker with math. I don't know if it's just more of they're expected to be. So there's kind of this imbalance there, but we do see this in girls and boys that, girls end up being better capable of writing and reading, and boys sometimes tend to struggle in those areas. So I get that. Like typically I like working with men, and this is another reason I do, because a lot of times it is very straight to the point. Now for me, I've been taught to have a softer communication approach, right? So it's been actually me trying to take a step back and shorten things. So with my emails, I actually do this. I look at my emails and look at, am I using a lot of filler words? What am I really trying to say? What can I take out of this message when I find it's getting a little long? So, and then sometimes when it's getting a little long, it just means I need to pick up the phone, or I need to, well, now I do a lot of stuff on Teams or Skype, but maybe I just need to call the person and talk it through with them. So, but yes, all of the women that I work with tend to send paragraphs or information when really there's maybe a sentence of information that you really need. Very point, Edward. Let's see here. Minister Terrence, welcome in. Nice to see you. Shonda said, oops, I think I missed something. Oh, hi, Miss Yo-Yo. Nice to see you. Been here listening. Shonda says, interesting topic. Awesome. Let me go back to Miss Yo-Yo. Nice to see you. Sometimes we suffer from imposter syndrome. Oh, yeah, I definitely agree with that. I do agree with that. I feel like, and maybe it's just because I have never asked the men this, I do feel like women feel this more. I've had a conversation with a woman on my team, my current team, about this, like just feeling imposter syndrome, and like, are we really up to this task? Like, kind of questioning our roles and things. So, definitely agree. Miss Yo-Yo saying hi to everybody. Simply Pandy is saying, now I agree with that. The imposter syndrome. I'm having such a hard time saying that word. Yes, I agree. Miss Yo-Yo brought up a great point. Let me see here. Miss Yo-Yo says, I'm working with this syndrome, Pandy. I have tools that I'm using. Really? Okay, Miss Yo-Yo, share us some of the tools you're using. Maybe helpful for folks in the chat and myself included. Ogden, great topic. I left a like and gave you some watch in our time. I have to go. Oh, okay. Thank you, Ogden. Nice to see you here. Oh, really? So Simply Painting saying, oh, really? Yeah, I think if you're responding to Miss Yo-Yo and saying about her tools, like, what are you using? I am very interested in that. And I know there's going to be a delay. So I will give you some time to tell us the secrets or tell us the tools, Miss Yo-Yo. Primping. Oh, and I would love to get your thoughts on this, primping, because you had a great discussion yesterday. Yes, yesterday, about with colors. So, like, what colors we're using for tech. And again, that's an industry I'm in, well, slightly in, because I'm recruiting the tech folks. But, using the colors and things in that aspect of femininity versus masculinity. So I'm very much interested to hear what you think too. So Ms. Yo-Yo is saying one tool is remembering that there is no correct way to arrive at your profession. Oh, yeah, there's not like a one way to do something. That's a good point. Very good point. Let me see here. I'm just looking back at the article to see if there was anything else I wanted to discuss on this, but I think I am covered. So there's another article, I'll mention this before. I'm just going to take a look at it. So this one is called Why Women Criticize Each Other. That may be a good topic point for another day, but that one looks pretty interesting. And it's kind of going into that point I made earlier about the whole likability. Like, why do we feel like everyone's going to like us? So that gets into why women feel like we are constantly needing to change our communication. So if you have a woman that's not really soft and feminine, well, I have to change my communication and be soft and delicate because other women are going to think this of me, or men are going to think this way of me. So this is really digging into how women criticize each other and the why behind it. So I think I'm going to take a look at that. Since I haven't looked through it, I'm not going to share this. I just want to make sure I understand some of the points in there, but it looks interesting as well. Let's see. So that is the video. I'm going to hang on here just because, in my live chats, I always want to make myself available in case there's anyone in here that has a job related question. Now, I did get a comment last night because I made a video that did pretty well. It was just a 1 minute short video, and I provided an update on the stimulus package. And this was when I literally had gotten a notification from TurboTax. They were telling me about how the IRS made a mistake and then when I should expect my stimulus package, whatever. And so I just did a quick video. It was like at night. I didn't look anything decent or special that day. And of course, that's the video that gets more likes. So, of course, like just winding down the night, 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, whenever it was, like seeing my email. Oh, I'm going to make a video real quick. That's the one that gets more popularity, right? So I was basically just sharing that IRS made a mistake and that really the money would come through. It should have been by January 15. I did a post like follow-up video to that. I just had someone question me on my last live yesterday. It was like, where's the stimulus money updates at? Like, where are these updates? So I am going to take a look and see if there's any updates for folks that still have not received their monies. So guys, I know Cubston might be still in there. This is very US focused, but I will make a quick video. I am planning to make it a quick 1 minute one because again, it's not really my normal content, but I do want to, if there's anyone following me for that reason, I want to make sure I get them some information. So I will be including that as well. But let me see here. There's a couple of content or comments that came through that I wasn't even seeing. I'm so sorry, guys. I am on my phone, so that is probably why. It says new comments. Okay, let me see. Primping. Oh, it's because of primping. Okay. So I'm still processing the combo and the questions, and next week I'll have more thoughts. It really made me think about the psychology and conditioning behind the visuals in tech. Okay, interesting. Well, I will keep an eye out for that video primping because I think it really does align. I mean, when you're looking at visuals, that's one form of communicating, right? So if we're like to the point, I think, yeah, I made this point. For me, when I think of tech, I think of silver and blue and maybe a pop of red or maybe a blend of all colors, which is how I set up my trivia game yesterday. I just did all colors because I was like, this looks techy. And it had black in there. So black would be another color. But you're kind of communicating. Like when you see pink, you're thinking girly. when you see blue, you're thinking boy. I mean, we're naturally kind of subconsciously built to think that way. So, anyway, I think I'm gonna get off of here, and I see your. Well, let me address this real quick. Jen, okay, cool. Loving these article topics. Great. Well, then I will definitely do more of these. So, day off today. It is Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday, so celebration for him. If anyone needs ideas, just a quick call out for. Oh my gosh, Pandy, please put your other channel name in the comments. If you need some ideas on how to celebrate or honor Dr. King today, Pandy did provide some great ideas on her other channel. So definitely check that out. I really took away some good points from it, especially with us being in a virtual space. So before, it was really easy to, like, you would go to do a march or do something, face to face in your community. And now we don't really have that. So, it was really nice to see some ideas come through from her. And then next comment here. So do I, definitely silver first, blue, red, and black. Yeah. So we're all communicating in these ways that are completely showing our feminine and masculine kind of tie, or what we view of each. So it's interesting, right? Pandy said, yes, panties, hair care, and more. Yes. So if anyone here is interested in thinking of, okay, or you can't think of any way that you can, kind of easily from home, virtually celebrate Dr. King today, this is a great channel. Like, check out that last video that she posted. I think you posted it like midnight, because I know I was looking at it late last night. I was like, ooh, what's this? So it's really good. It's not too long, so watch the full things. I think the tips that I actually liked came at the end of the video. So definitely check that out. And if there's no other comments, I am going to get off of here. Thank you, Pandy. No, you're welcome. It was great content, so appreciate you sharing it with us. Alrighty, well, definitely do something to celebrate Dr. King today at some point. There's also a nice movie that Regina King. I know I always say I'm getting off of here, and then I'm like, ooh, I thought of something else. But there's this great, well, I won't say great. I enjoyed it just because it was just kind of cool. But Regina King produced a movie called One Night in Miami. It doesn't include Dr. King, but I thought it was interesting because she brought some of the, folks that were at the, very critical to a part of the civil rights movement together. So Muhammad Ali, Malcolm X, Jim Brown, and Sam Cooke, which I didn't know anything about other than he was a singer. I didn't really know much about Jim Brown either. I actually looked him up, and I was interested. He's got himself a young thing. He's married twice, and married a beautiful Black lady, and then married another beautiful Black lady later in life, half his age. So he's like 80 years old with a 40 something. I was like, all right, Jim Brown, you go get him. Anyway, you guys know I'm sometimes a little silly, but it was a cool movie because it basically kind of took their stances on different issues and brought it together and did this fictional account of what if they got together at one point and we were able to see them converse. And I just thought it was pretty cool. I don't know if the acting was completely right. Like, you guys know, I have listened to Malcolm X and have seen a lot of his views on things, especially with his later in life approach. And the actor was close, but there were little things I could pick up on. I was like, Malcolm X wouldn't do this. He wouldn't stand that way. He wouldn't do that. So anyway, just putting it out there. Could be a cool video to watch. It is on Amazon Prime if anyone is interested. So to Jen's point, I will continue doing these type of videos. And let me see. Probably, I don't know, next Saturday or this Saturday, I might post another video like this, or maybe the following week. I'm trying to find a little balance in these videos. Edward says ex running back for the Cleveland Browns. Yeah, I had to learn about Jim Brown. I was like, who is Jim Brown? Like, why do I not know about him? Like, I feel like my education has failed me. Like, why is it I only know about kind of the mainstream folks instead of, Jim Brown and some of these other folks that were crucial to the movement as well. So anyway, I am going off on a tangent. So I'm going to close out this video, but I definitely appreciate you all for being here. And again, please do check out Pandy's video if you need some ideas on how to celebrate and honor Dr. King today. And you will see my next video up here probably shortly, either today or tomorrow. I got to do some editing today. So, all right, guys, I will see you later, and happy Monday. Bye.